Good morning and welcome back. Welcome back to the Vision Alignment Show, where we all understand how important it is to sometimes put those blinders on and really focus in on our vision and stay aligned with our vision. Hence the Vision Alignment Show. And I don't know who thought of that, but there's also this point where you have to take those blinders off and see the world around you, see what's going on around you. That's important as well. But more than anything is to have your core beliefs and your core values aligned with your vision. I can't tell you how impressive it is when I see people that have their cores aligned with their vision. Someone that has their core beliefs and their core values aligned with their vision. Well, I'm also going to tell you a little bit about the shows that we have coming up in the next few days, but I'll save that until the end. But I want to make sure that we get to our guest today. So our guest today is none other than Jess Pettitt. And there she is. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Jess.
Absolutely. Good morning.
Good morning to you. So tell me, when is your first recollection of knowing your vision?
I actually think the very first time I knew I was onto something was when I was in seventh grade. We had to do a book report, like a research paper and a presentation for a theater class. And almost everybody picked either very dead people or like famous people they had no access to. And they were using like People magazine as references, that kind of stuff. So I grew up in North Dallas. And there was a businessman who had just opened a new company called the EDS in Plano and was causing all kinds of ruckus because he was like a new guy and whatever. So I decided to pick Ross Perot as my person. And I rode my bike to his house every single day for 3 weeks until he would actually let me in. And then I interviewed him live and in person instead of using People magazine. And eventually, that's actually how my school district got their first computer labs.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I love it. If you want to hear more, stay right there. Yes, what a great story. I love this. So we're going to have a good time this morning. But before we go there, I want to encourage people to share this video out with as many people as you can think of on your timelines or whatever way you can do that. Really would appreciate you sharing this video out. We want to make this community larger. And the larger we make this community, the better we are. We all are. So really, thank you for doing that. Also, if you would, put a picture of yourself in your timeline of you winking. And yes, and of you winking. And when you wink, I want you to think, I wonder what makes me unique. Because if I know what makes me unique, and it's not my eye, what makes me unique is my positive personality. And I'm able to share my story with other people in order to have a lasting impact on their lives. That's what makes me unique. So I wonder what makes you unique. If you know what makes you unique, then you can use that to service someone else. And the service of others is really where happiness truly happens. So please do that for me if you would, please. And then, as always, go to brianwagner.live if you want to sign up for more. But thank you. Yes, back to you. Great story, but I want to hear more. Tell me more about the story.
Well, I think when asked, like, how did you kind of stumble into your vision, I used that as an example in that, number one, I was not told that I had to interview somebody real, but the assignment was to do kind of a biography of someone. So I kind of always go the extra. That just is true about me. But I think that it is also the first time, I don't know that Ross Perot would ever identify really as an underdog, but he was a new business person in town that was causing a lot of conversation about him and about EDS. And I was in 7th grade and I just rode my bicycle to his house and got to know him, like interviewed him. And I don't think I realized at the time the kind of audacity that that took. But it just was a school assignment. And I had the idea and it seemed like an interesting conversation to have. And I think that that really, it wasn't until after the assignment, right, that I learned that all the other students did like Benjamin Franklin or like Tom Hanks or something like that. I didn't realize that I was so out of scope. And it's not that my presentation was any better than anybody else's, but I just had an idea and there wasn't anything stopping me from doing the idea. And then I presented the idea, right? Like, but I think it was later on that I realized that I have never been limited by the directions that were given me. And I have never also broken the directions. So I follow the rules, just amplified.
That is awesome. What a great story. I love it. So tell us, what do you think the biggest factor in your success is?
Well, I do think that audacity piece is kind of important.
Yeah.
I usually tell people, especially like solopreneurs who are starting their own business, I wish I had known this a little earlier, but I am in charge of my own sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's a little bit easier to make clear choices. I'm not very good at doing it all the time, but when something feels urgent, I actually get to determine if it is or is not urgent. It is not externally urgent about my website or my videos or getting back to this client. Or, I know that in my relationship, there was an idea my husband gave me of blocking weekends. And I was like, oh, well, I can't do that. I mean, what if clients need the weekends? Yeah, but if I block them, I can give up my weekend, but it starts blocked instead of like trying to do it the other way around and just giving my calendar to everybody else. So again, I think that it's following directions, but amplified,
Huh. Yeah, that's good. I love it. You've got so much happening, so much going on. I know from a work perspective. Tell everybody else a little bit more about what all you have going on these days.
I don't know. I have any more than your average bear. I don't even have
kids.
I'm not homeschooling anybody. We did rescue a very mentally challenged dog right before COVID hit, and the dog is now wagging its tail and occasionally even like goes to the bathroom unprompted outdoors. It's very exciting. Lots of
outdoors.
Yeah, she was scared of the outside and also scared of her body functions. So we've kind of helped that. It's taken a year, but year and 24/7 attention. But she's become a dog. That's pretty exciting. But otherwise, I am an author, consultant, speaker, trainer, educator, primarily around diversity, equity, and inclusion related issues. So
that brings up a good point. You have a website?
I do. Good Enough Now.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So I, as a DEI person, was burning out, kind of doing what I call old school diversity trainings, and eventually realized I had no additional monetizable skills. And I eventually flipped my approach inside out, and I find it significantly more effective and successful. But the idea of Good Enough Now is basically do the best you can with what you got some of the time, because it's better than nothing never. That's led to a book. I changed every way that I do my work and how I hold the conversations with others. But most importantly, I've changed my own views and how I'm responsible for who and how I am in relationships with other people.
So how did you do that? How did you make that change?
By flipping in everything inside out.
Yeah.
I tried to quit. That didn't work. I think like I was fortunate enough. I'm probably supposed to have some quippy answer, but I was
No.
fortunate
Huh.
enough that I had a number of contracts that I still needed to fulfill when I had determined I should quit. So I actually was still working while I was quitting, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I started listening to my audience members. And as I started listening to them in a different way, because I knew I was quitting, they didn't know I was quitting. I began to realize that their reasonings or their excuses for not engaging in challenging conversations or deflecting responsibility because somebody else is a terrible person or something, there were some patterns there. And I kind of couldn't get those patterns out of my head. And then again, the theme is these patterns then began to amplify in my head. And eventually it connected responsibility, it connected social justice works, it connected personal and self-reflection. And honestly, my partner had surgery, and I'm not a very good, like, nurturing kind of person. So
No.
I don't know. No, not a strength. Not a strength. So while he's asleep and I had to, give him a pill or something every 2 hours or 4 hours, whatever, I had to be really quiet. I'm not a very quiet person. And I just started kind of writing what all these patterns meant. And what ended up being a first draft of my book is what came out of that. I didn't look at it again for 6 months because, again, I had work to do. And then I came back to it and I realized that I think that this is a fresh, new perspective of personal responsibility and how it intersects with diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And then now it's been almost 8 years and there's no turning back.
So do you have another book in you?
I just released the second edition of the first book, and like the idea of another one is not happening right now, but I have a lot of other ideas.
Yeah.
I'd like to do more research on toxic environments and what causes toxicity. And then I'd like to do something on kind of how emotional intelligence can be used for good or bad, but I think that's probably related to toxicity.
Cool. So you have a book, you have a speaking career, you do a lot of good work. How does all that make you feel?
Pretty damn fulfilled. I feel like I'm older than my parents got. And I told my therapist the other day that the amount of curiosity that I get to still do and have, I feel is probably my greatest accomplishment. I feel mostly secure and like I really am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I say mostly because, like, of course, I still have like imposter syndrome and all those fun things. Those things are still present. But I really feel, oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's, you can't just be an egotist the whole time. You have to be humble. And when you're trapped in between the two, I think is where your kind of underbelly stuff shows up.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So tell us, what are some of the obstacles or challenges that you're still working on? I mean, you still have in front of you, but you just haven't really figured out how to overcome them yet.
Knowing my worth, believing that I have something to say that makes sense to somebody else. Cooking, I'm a terrible cook. That's been the big lesson of COVID is I am a horrible cook.
Even with a recipe?
I don't really, that's where I don't follow directions. I amplify. I don't follow directions and recipes. I have some kind of like completing thing. So like if there's a little bit of whatever left, I'll dump it in, and then there's clearly too much of whatever that was. I don't understand how things interact with one another. I tried to do the whole bread baking thing that was quite popular.
Oh yeah.
And one, I didn't realize until many failed loaves that we don't really eat a lot of bread. So even if I got good at this is stupid. But yeah, one time I ran out of flour, and so I was like scanning the kitchen for something dry to like replace with flour. Did I oatmeal? That could have worked. Didn't think about it. What I ended up using was psyllium husks, I think is what it's called.
What is that?
I had no idea. It was in the cabinet. So I tried to put some in, but then you needed more and more. So I ended up putting the whole sack in. And I think that's what it was called. Well, it turns out that's what you put in your breakfast when you need to like move digestive situations. Some natural, like, I don't know, lubricant or something.
Laxative?
Fibrous. Yeah. So I added the entire sack to a loaf of bread because I don't know what I'm doing.
Hope you found that out soon after you added it.
Luckily, the bread was so terrible that nobody ate it. And then our best friend has been in our pod because she lives by herself and is a frontline worker. And she came over and I was like, do you want to try this loaf that I made? And she's like, what did you do? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, do you have any idea what this is? And she's like, how much of that did you put in there? I'm like, the whole sack. She's like, you should just throw that away. Anyway, everybody needs that friend.
Wow. So she sounds like she helps you to see your blind spots. Who else do you have that sees your blind spots?
Every human being around me, I think, is very aware of my blind spots. And occasionally someone likes me enough to be like, Jessica, excuse me, Jessica. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
How do you achieve or how do you get to clarity?
I don't
how do
know.
you become clear on what it is you do?
It's a super good question. And I don't know that I don't know. And two, I don't know that I've experienced enough consistency in little flashes of clarity that I could even ask that or answer that. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm being too literal, but always asking more questions and always being curious, like kind of parts the fog, right?
Yeah.
But generally speaking, it's still foggy.
Mm-hmm. Well, with having foggy clarity, I get that. You're not alone there. But how do you stay steadfast in what you do?
Yeah, again, another good question. I don't have anything else to do. I mean, it's keep trying to do this or like, I don't know, do the dishes. Yes. All right, I'll keep doing this, right? Like, I love what I'm doing, even though I'm not super clear about what it is that I'm doing. I am fed in some way by having created the life that I have created for myself. But what is that life and what does it do and in what order? I have no idea. And maybe that's actually one of the big things I've learned about myself when, COVID shut everything down is that I've created a life that's really based on novelty. So I'm just connecting the dots that maybe like the lack of clarity means that everything is always novel and new and like, ooh, I don't know, let's turn left. Don't turn left. Okay, let's turn around. Maybe that's the case. I don't know, but it's the newness and the decisiveness that I think I like the most about running my own business.
So are you one of those people that likes to go a different direction home than when they went someplace?
That is a really interesting and insightful question. My gut reaction was, no, I am totally a creature of habit. So I mean, like I order the same thing at restaurants, like
Chinese restaurants. Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah. I would say I'm more of a creature of habit, like safety. Like one of my former nicknames was the safety girl because I had a full-time job and did stand up at night. So all the comedians called me safety girl. But I do think, and maybe this is being like a super Virgo person, but I do think like if I'm on vacation, like I have decided I am not working during this period of time. So during this period of time, I can be spontaneous, which is, I recognize is not spontaneous if you're planning when to not be planful. But like, I don't have a cell phone, I don't have a watch. And one of the things I've learned the most from my husband is he calls it following his nose. And it used to drive me crazy because it still does occasionally, but it's so inefficient. But it's really beautiful. And if you have no place to go, then following your nose, you get to find all these new things. And we followed our nose this weekend coming back. And, I saw a covered bridge I've never seen before. And it was, when you see those moments in real life where, like, at least I think, like, is this a painting? Right? Because there's like a majestic horses and mist coming off the grass and a covered bridge, and the light is beautiful. And I would never have found that had I not gotten lost 16 times, but we were choosing to get lost, which is not always taking the same way home.
Now, there you go. So follow your nose doesn't always refer to smell.
No. Just, I don't know, this way. I don't know. If you turn left 3 times, that's probably bad news. But then you're just back where you started. So then start over.
Right. Huh. Very cool. So where do you vacation at?
Remember vacations.
So nice.
I know. I feel like if we vacation this year, it's going to be like wearing belts and shoes and not be sitting in this chair. That's my vacation. Generally speaking, I used to travel about 300 days a year. And partly because I live in such a remote area, I would just stay out, right? So like, let's say I have a speaking gig in Columbus. So my brother lives outside of Dayton. And then maybe I have 1 or 2 days with him speaking Columbus. And then I have 1 or 2 days before I have to go someplace else, right? So I would stay out like 6 weeks at a time, which meant that I had like a day off for 2 days parking someplace. And then I would just go explore a new city. Or a new town or a new place, or, go see a landmark or a national park or something that you're supposed to have seen if you've been to that state, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I used to do that a lot. And then vacations would be usually with Lauren, my husband, but like no cell phones, no computers, no watches, no plans, no reservations, no nothing. We just go, empty our brains, and then I usually sleep for 2 days. And then when I like come to, then you pick and choose what do you want to do in that moment of what's available, which again is not efficient, but it is following your nose.
That's good.
And
I like that.
We have a combination of likes. So I married an avid outdoorsman. So there needs to be like stuff to do. And I am like a lizard on vacation. So the last... shade with perhaps a beverage, maybe a book that I
and that's okay.
Yeah. A book that I pretend to read. That's usually a theme. Yeah. So the last joint vacation we went to was Jamaica. So I have friends that I do a service project there every year. I have friends that are there, and we stay in this wonderful kind of shabby place that is off of the tourist realm, and do nothing. It's great. Loved it.
Sounds like a good vacation. Awesome. Well, tell me, if you would, or tell us, because there's a whole lot of people out here listening. Tell us what you think in regards to your morning routine. So tell us a little bit about that first, and then we'll go to the next question.
My morning routine?
Yeah.
So I am a morning person. So generally speaking, I tend to wake up about 4 minutes before my alarm set. Whatever it's set for, I wake up early out of habit so that it doesn't wake up the dogs and everybody else. And then in the morning, usually it's still dark, and I have my like quiet time in the morning. I make a soy chai or find one.
Nice.
And I usually, the last thing I do before I go to sleep, I go to sleep pretty early, but the last thing I do before I go to sleep is what am I doing tomorrow, right? So I already kind of have that all mapped out. So then when I wake up in the morning, it's quiet and peaceful. And if I have writing or something I need to do, I usually do that like probably within 3 minutes of opening my eyes. I
Wow.
start writing. And then after about an hour, hour and a half, usually my first meeting is happening because I usually wake up about 2 hours before I have something to do. And then, at least for the last year, I sit in this chair straight through, zoomings
Zoom,
all
zoom,
day
zoom.
long. Yeah, and I'm either delivering content or doing the sales process or the follow-up process or the lead generation process, right? Like those are all Zoom calls now. Somewhere in there, I usually attempt to make dinner. And I have a standing date with the dogs for a dog walk in the afternoon.
Cool.
And by about, I don't know, 3:30, 4 o'clock, hopefully I'm doing errands because I'm pointless. I should not be writing. I should not be talking to people. I definitely should not be signing things. And yeah.
Why do you say you're pointless?
Oh, my like cognitive ability is so dramatically decreased by like 4:30, which is ironic because inside of COVID, I enrolled in an MBA program and the classes start at 5, where I'm like just mentally spent. And the classes are 1 day a week until 8:30.
Wow.
So I'm usually asleep by 8. So it's been an adjustment, to say the least. So.
It sounds like COVID has been a huge adjustment for you overall. I mean, it has been for everybody, but I mean, somebody that travels 300 days a year, somebody that doesn't normally go to classes until 8:30. I mean, it just sounds like it's been quite a year. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think everyone has had quite a year. It has definitely been a disruption. I found out this weekend that we were the topic of conversation at somebody else's was having dinner at yet another couple's house a couple of weeks ago, and the other couple, who knows my husband more than me, inquired, like, do you have any idea how are they doing? Because it seems like a really important part of their relationship was that she was never in town. And I couldn't imagine doing this with anybody else. I feel like that's probably the most positive thing I could say. I married an extreme introvert outdoorsman who is a philosophy professor.
Wow.
I'm like the loudest living human being. But we're both very, very committed to justice and fairness and honesty and fundamental principles like that. So in this period of time, like he finished a book proposal that he's working on, or finished the book and submitted it to the publisher. His classes have been fascinating, both as educators, the pivot to online. It's been really nice for both of us to be able to talk about doing this. What does that mean? And he gets to go like hiking or kayaking or whatever and get away from the loudest person in the world.
Wow. He sounds like a great guy.
Oh, I won. I totally won the spousal lottery for sure. So he puts up with me, and luckily does not have a relationship with food. So we're both losing weight.
Oh, too funny. Well, Jess, I really thank you for being on today. I mean, I can't believe our time has expired already. But you know, there's been so much that you know we could continue to talk about. I'd like to have you back on if you would be willing to do that.
Sure.
You would?
I feel like I didn't use our time very wisely. I just rambled, so I'm happy.
No, it's been perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Thank you very much for being on. I'm going to wave you off. I'm going to let you go back to the green room, if you will, please, and then hang out there for a little bit. I'll come and we'll chat a little bit after I close out the show, but thank you again for being on.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Really
see everybody tomorrow.
All right. See you, Jess. Bye. Wow. Huh. What a great relaxing conversation we had with Jess Pettitt. That was phenomenal. We have more guests coming up for you for tomorrow. Tomorrow we have none other than Nido Cobain, Dr. Nido Cobain, joining us. Like, how does that happen? I mean, he is such a nice guy, such a giving guy of his time, and he's just blown my mind. So I'm looking forward to having him on tomorrow, and then we have other guests coming on after that. But really want to make sure that if there's any way that you can be here at 10 o'clock Eastern tomorrow, you need to be. So Vision Alignment Show with Nido Cobain. If there's ever anything that I can do for any of you, please let me know. And as always, keep one eye on the road.